very keen on you, Chris.
Oh, hi.
I don't know if it does dynamic zooming or whatever. It's right. Okay. There we go. Right. So, hello. We're back with another episode of the LOC report, and as you can see, I'm representing both leagues today, both the NFL and the LOC. Just before we get started, as always, we'll just post the link into the chat. But I see Nigel's already seen it, so that's good. Look, there we are. You can hear us too. It's like podcastception. Let's turn that off. Okay, so link in here and away.
I see shit.
So, away we go. So, hello, we're back with another LSU report. And now, well, if it wasn't the business end of the season last week, sure as hell is now, because last week, final week of the regular season. So for a lot of us, the season is now over in terms of real things to play for. And the lucky few of us get to go on a quest for glory. But before we get all to that, as always, we start the show in every way to give you a bit of consistency every week. We will start with the league news.
Absolutely.
We start with injuries, as we always do. So we'll take a look down the dream team here. Adam Thielen, limited participant. I think he'll be fine for the weekend. Jared Cook, limited participant. He got a bit banged up at the weekend, but he should be fine. Amir Abdullah, full participant. Now this is interesting because he was healthy. Apparently last weekend, and he was made a healthy scratch.
Oh, right.
So that was a team decision not to play him. He hasn't been great this season. As you can probably see, he's got 86 points in the season, so not a lot. As a starting running back, so that's not great. So that makes sense. Adrian Peterson did not practice. He's got that neck injury still. Looks like he might miss the rest of the season, is what I'm hearing. Jordan Reed was put on IR this week with that hamstring. He's done. That is it for the dream team. Southampton Knowles, Brady, full participant. He's been getting a rest day each week with a quote-unquote Achilles injury, but it's probably just a rest day. Matt Forday did not practice. I still think he missed practice today. He's had a knee or toe or something, so not looking good for him. Jimmy Graham, limited participant, the eternally injured. CJ, and these other guys we already know about. One quick thing on Malcolm Mitchell, actually. He's probably not going to return this year from IR, so... quick note there.
Done.
Thomas Tyrants, Mike Davis, limited participant. He's been pretty good, to be fair, for Seattle, but he's just not been healthy. It'll be interesting to see if he plays this weekend. Amari Cooper surprisingly suited up last week. He had to clear a concussion, then he still had an ankle injury, but I was amazed when he was playing. But I think he re-aggravated it.
He got carted off at some point.
So not looking good. Kevin Williams should play. Dan Bailey as well is here, actually. He should play. I don't think he missed last weekend's game, but he did get a hamstring injury. Tanky McTagface, Carl Rudolph did not practice. Something popped up about him, but he usually plays, so he should be okay. Mike Easley, limited, should be good to go. Greg, also full participant. He played again last weekend, came back from that broken foot. But he was noticeably limping at some point, so I have read. So, and probably the biggest one of all, Carson Wentz did tear his ACL in last week's game, which was unfortunate. For anyone really, whether you're an Eagles fan or not, you never know to see the best in the game go down. No one wins.
Stop rushing as a quarterback.
Stop rushing as a quarterback.
Don't do it. Then throw the ball.
And while I whiz through the rest of the injuries, if you wouldn't mind recording on your phone, if that's okay, just as our fail-safe, as we always like to do.
We like to do a fail-safe.
Pakistan then, Michael Thomas, full participant, he should be good to go. Chris Hogan, limited participant, he returned from his multi-week absence this week. That was a shoulder injury. Didn't do a whole lot, which we'll cover off, but he is back and should play this week too. Joe Mixon did not get cleared for last week's game. He had a concussion. First practice this week, did not practice, but he did practice today. Has not cleared the concussion protocol, but he's on the right track to play for Sunday's game. McCaffrey, full participant, he'll be fine. ADLZ, Jonathan Stewart did not practice, a bit of rest for an old guy who did pretty well on the weekend, as we'll see.
Sure.
Robert Woods, limited participant, he's missed a few games with his shoulder arm injury. Might come back this weekend, want to keep an eye on. Damian Williams, he's missed the last few weeks, still not practicing, probably won't play either, especially with the emergence of Kenyon Drake. Cash for gold. Cam Newton, he's been dealing with stuff all season, but he'll play. Alvin Kamara did not play last week. No, sorry, he did, but he got knocked out of the game with a concussion. He's a full participant, so he's practicing. I'm not yet sure if he's cleared the protocol, but when they're full practice, that's usually a good sign, so he should be fine. Hunter Henry, limited participant. I'd expect him to suit up. Then Nader Zakat, another guy that didn't play last weekend because of a concussion, but I think he's cleared the protocol now, so he's on track to play this weekend. Iksan Lamamila limited participant. I think he'll be fine. Ted Ginn did not practice. He took a huge shot to the ribs at the end of last week's game, but he's had a long, nice rest, so he should be fine. Bare Necessities, they're looking... Oh no, Josh McCown broke his hand. Of course he did. He's done for the rest of the year.
And so are the Jets.
Yeah, they're already pretty, medium done. Now they're very well done.
Very well done.
Jermaine Curse, full participant. He got an injury in the game, but he should be good to go anyway. John Brown, limited participant, should be good to go. Gridiron Gang, Matt Stafford, full participant. He had a hand injury going to last week's game, but he played and should be fine. Brownie Cooks, full participant. No idea what's limiting him, but he'll play. Devin Funchess, he's got a shoulder thing that he picked up 2 weeks ago. Played last weekend, he'll be playing this week. Giovanni Bernard, limited participant. He has a knee issue, but should be good to go. Jarrett McKinnon, he's got a shoulder issue. He only played 1 snap in the second half last week, but oops, excuse me. He should be good to go. Where were we? Gridiron Gang. And that's that there. Forge Flyers, Blake Bortles, full participant. He'll be fine. Sean McCoy, limited participant. I think that's a knee thing, but it's a bit of a rest thing, so I wouldn't worry. Ari Fitzgerald, same thing. Rest day. Mike Wallace did not practice. I'm not sure about that. Do you think?
I think he's. This must be a recurrence of a previous hamstring injury, because that's where he was out before.
Yeah, sure.
Which wouldn't be surprising with him, but yes, it's certainly something that's not flagged up on the radar.
Sure. Leonard Fournette did not practice. This one I do know. He's missed the last 2 days of practice with a quad problem.
Yeah.
So he's looking a bit dicey for the weekend. And that is all your injuries, so we'll nip on down to the transactions, and as always, please, you can comment and talk to yourselves on the YouTube chat, but because we are recording live, we don't have the thing facing us, so we can give you as good a quality as we can. Hesitant to say good quality. But if you want to say anything, say it in the chat, and we can read it out here, or just message me, that's fine too. Alright, transactions then. So we had Forge Flyers, amazingly. It was bound to happen eventually. He's been playing well, but it still looks no less funny than it is. You'll be the first to say that, because Forge Flyers did have Blake Bortles for $20 and dropped Marcus Mariota, which probably cut you deep in a lot of different ways.
Very, very much so. I mean, I would have loved Mariota to be a success, but I think the fact that he's injured now and he hasn't been playing very well recently, it just is time to go, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and Blake Bortles has been playing well. I think the problem for a lot of us this season is he's a hard guy to trust.
Yeah, for
sure. Because we all know he is Blake Bortles, but he certainly showed that he can put up some numbers. The potential is there. That tasted weird. Gridiron Gang added the Saints defense for $15 to drop the Cowboys defense. They play Bryce Petty-led Jets, so gimme. Pakistan added the Falcons D for $2 and dropped the Packers D. They're playing Tampa Bay. Gridiron Gang added the Chicago Bears D and dropped Aaron Jones. Tanky McTankfest added Carolina Panthers D and dropped the Patriots.
It's a D fest this week, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because they're playing Green Bay. So what else we got? So Gridiron Gang added Rod Smith and dropped Danny Woodhead. But then they added Trey Burton and dropped Steven Anderson. Gridiron Gang added James Conner and dropped Orleans Darkwa.
So go for the handcuff there.
At this point in the season,
insurance policy.
Dark was not going to start over any of my guys, so I've got to make sure you're covered. Especially with no money left. ADLZ added Eric Ebron and dropped Cameron Brate. They also added Wayne Gorman and dropped DeAndre Washington. Tanky McTankface, love it. Added Jimmy Garoppolo and dropped Martavis Bryant. I believe he's in the start lineup.
Jimmy G.
I'm picking Phil to win for that reason alone. Love it. Wanted to do it last week, but Stafford played. So.
No, fair enough.
They also added Joe Flacco and put Carson Wentz on IR. That one I'm not so in love with.
He's playing Cleveland this week, but even so.
Yeah. Bare Necessities added the Lions D and dropped the Bengals D. And Forge Flyers finally added OJ Howard and dropped Austin Safarian Jenkins. And those are all of the transactions and everything. So a little bit of other news, just so we cover it off now. We are in the league news section now, after all. Forfeit playoffs have begun. We will cover the matchups and everything as we go on.
Yeah.
But it's always good to reiterate here. You need to arrange with your opponent what your forfeit will be.
You do. And it's at this point now that last year's forfeits are now done. That is it. That is done. Because I now cannot say contractually that Tom's Tyrants are going to win the LOC, because they can't.
But by that logic, Phil Contagious team name now, and I'm not accepting that. So I'm saying you have to go 2 more weeks.
That's true. 2 more weeks is it. Apart from less if you me, because otherwise I'm totally telling a massive lie to you all.
I would say to the end of week 16. I think after that you can try and tell people, oh, the season isn't over till it flips open. It doesn't hang. But 2 more weeks, the season isn't over. So 2 more weeks, you've got to keep up with that, unfortunately. Yep, so arrange your forfeits though with your opponent. Let me know. They can either be the same thing or different for both of you. I don't really care. However you guys want to do it. Okay. Let me know by Sunday, please. Please let me know by Sunday. It's always better when we know what's on the line before the games and everything. Makes it much more interesting for everyone. And of course, if it looks like you're going to lose, it kind of de-incentivizes you to do it anyway. Indeed. So please get them in by Sunday. And other bits of business, as we said, the playoffs have begun. Obviously, we're going to cover that in a second. And I will create some events to invite people over to the playoffs in the Corona Bowl, because they are substantial events in the LEC calendar, of course. We'll find out who our Corona Bowl finalists are and who the Corona Bowl winner is. And indeed, who will be doing what forfeits. So
indeed.
All good fun, so check those out. But in the meantime, we will go back and look at last week's game, see everything that transpired in the epic that was week 14. We'll start off with the game that had no impact on anything.
Yep.
For the Flyers, already 10-3 entering this one. They'd secured playoffs pretty much a while ago now. Cashford, meanwhile, had been eliminated from the playoffs for a week or two. So nothing riding on this game. A little bowl placement for Cashford, but other than that, nothing to speak of. So we won't spend too much time on it. Ford Flyers took it 105-89. Another solid week heading into the playoffs.
Absolutely right. And so it's all about the running backs here again. So we see that's pretty much what's propelled Ford Flyers over the line. So McCoy in the god awful snow in Buffalo. We got Gurley, who against the number 1 ranked run D in the league has gone for 25 points. So the guy is matchup proof. Yeah. And Kenyon Drake, who has come out absolutely nowhere recently, but let's be honest, even against New England, and say he's looking good. And say putting up 19 points this time of the season. Especially with no touchdowns as well, don't forget, people. No touchdowns.
They made him look like Barry Sanders. I watched the game. It was not good.
No. So yeah, long may that continue.
Yep.
But yeah, that's where it was won. Other than that, not too much to shout out receiver-wise. Marquise Goodwin's turned up the last half of the season, which is nice.
Yeah, he's been good, especially with Garoppolo coming in.
But nothing with kicker, nothing with tight end, and the Jags D is kind of there or thereabouts. So yeah, nice kind of 20. What was that? What we got? 14. 16-point win. How about that? There's lots to shout about here for Cashford Goldwyn. So they did push us fairly close. Robbie Gould's actually been the best player.
Yeah, he's been a really good player. No one would have seen it coming, but
not at all.
Been good for them.
Not at all. It's really worked for them. Eagles did have been good pretty much all year. Hunter Henry went for a nice stat line, but unfortunately, as we've seen across the year, consistency isn't really there. And say what really has lost in the week is not having a consistent QB. And they're the star running back going down early. So otherwise, it's a really nice week for him.
Yeah, and I told Chris and messaged into the chat before the show that this would be a very good show for a number of reasons, and I have souped it up a bit in terms of production value. So now Ford Flyers have notched their first win against Cashford. They are 1-1 now, so we'll dip it there. Next one, then Tom's Tyrants against Ben Necessities. Now we're covering this one off here. This did have a little bit of playoff implication, because Ben Necessities did have a very outside chance at making playoffs. So they needed to win first and foremost, and they needed to outscore some teams by quite a lot. That number would have been in upwards of, I think, 60, 80 points, something like that. So, the Thomas Tyrants, though, they were 5-8 entering this game, I think. Again, they pretty much avoided the tank bowl, I think. That was an outside chance they could be in it, but not very likely. So, mainly just bowl positioning for them. But Ben Necessities did get the win they need. We'll find out in a bit if there was enough points. They only did get 98, so not looking good here. To 85. Tell me about the game.
Should have rolled with the Rams. That's it. Thomas Tyrants here, so that's where the points that could have won on the week are on the bench. Yeah, it's difficult to say about Amari Cooper going down, but let's be honest. So he has
very banged up guy in the game against.
It's difficult in Kansas City to come out with that. Yes, they haven't been great against the pass this year. Kansas City, they're playing at home and they're still pretty good there. So I see that, and I think that in what was destined to always be a shootout against Philly, that probably should have gone with that. However, saying that, it's pretty even on both sides. There's not too much to shout about Ben Necessities wise. Obviously, Roethlisberger's been a very, very good pickup.
Bailed him out, yeah.
Yeah, over the last 5 or 6 weeks since Rodgers went down. You know, Williams there again against Cleveland. You expect some big numbers, but that's a really, really big number. And as I say, we've seen
he's been good.
Seen some serious, absolutely, some serious numbers over the past few weeks. And Devontae Freeman, you know, it's what you get from a first round pick. But other than that, there's really not a lot to write home about. And that's the real difference, really. I think that the difference in QB, obviously, that's 20 points or 21 points different. And where are we? We're 13 points behind on Tom's Tyrant. So, you know, Ben Roethlisberger, whether you like it or not, really is the difference here between two fairly evenly matched sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really Antonio Brown was the bright spot on Tom's Tyrant. So the better Keenan Allen, and behind that, really not much to speak of. So, their necessities are now 5-4 against Tom's Tyrants all time, so they break the tie right there. Now we get to the playoff stuff. So we're going to start with this one. ADRZV, the Dream Team, now entering this game. ADRZ were leading the division on points, but they needed to win to solidify the division, really. Ben could have caught them up, but it would have been tough. With a loss, they were pretty much guaranteed the wild card due to their really substantial points. So basically, entering this one, they were practically in the playoffs anyway. But what transpired is they had a really, really great week and a great walk into the playoffs, and it wouldn't look like that for a long time because Dream Team did spring out to an 115-point lead, made it really difficult. But ADRZ looked at that and were like, "You ain't beating me, 12th place team. You ain't beating me. I'm gonna drop 135 on you and win this one. Tell me about the game."
135. I would say 135 at this point of the season is ominous, and especially going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break down the positives from both sides. Now, what I do like here is that obviously Russell Wilson, even against Jacksonville, is scoring huge points. Now Jacksonville have been notoriously, they've been crushing QBs
in Jacksonville too. Cross country, Seattle don't ever travel well either.
No, absolutely. And so the difference, you know, even I think you can understand that the difference in temperature in Seattle this time of the year, which is very similar to the UK.
Well, certainly that's the time difference that they struggle with.
Yeah, too. So add the two together, and the two factors are pretty unbelievable. So to put 27 points, you know, 3 touchdowns at one point in the game. It wasn't looking like he was having a great week, but he picks it up in the fourth quarter because that's what Russell Wilson does. Jonathan Stewart, again, this is it, of all the times to pick it up.
And this was a really unexpected game to do it because Minnesota, one of the league leading run defenses, and he dropped 3 touchdowns.
Absolutely, and did very, very well. That's it. I mean, I think Carolina to an extent has been missing that because now Cam can't really run as much as he used to. McCaffrey's the kind of scat back. You know, it opens it up for Stewart to do something, and he certainly did. And as I say, three touchdowns. I mean, say there's one more way to propel yourself across the line. Corral's turned up for the first time in a while. DeAndre Hopkins, he is the #1 guy in Houston now.
Yeah,
he is the
number 2 receiver in fantasy.
Yeah, Tom Savage loves throwing to him. He zeroes in on him everywhere. So that's scary at this point of the year. The Broncos D down against the Jets. That's it. So held them to 0 points. And a great fantasy stat line there as well. So, across the board there's a lot to be positive about. And considering that at the beginning of the season we were really slagging off this team for being an auto-drafted team, there's a lot of elements in there which aren't anymore. So
no, absolutely,
you can't turn that around.
Absolutely.
On the Dream Team, say from coming back from was it a 48-point game the week previous?
some torrid weeks off the torrid season.
Yeah, let's be honest. It's not been good for them. But they say some of these performances are what you expect from some of these players. You know, so Breeze getting to over 20 points. Jordan Howard, meriting his first round pick. You know, even guys like Thielen who've been very, very good all year. And to be quite honest with you, kept this team in the game at certain points. Duke Johnson, he's been fairly useful, but you don't see that sort of production. Yes, he's got a touchdown, which explains why, but even so, that's it. That's the kind of week to do it. And Jared Cook, who actually, to be fair, has been a decent pickup off the waivers. Yeah. So all in there. And he couldn't have won the game, which is also is a positive thing. Didn't leave anything on the bench. His players turned up at the right year, just unfortunately playing the wrong position.
Yeah, exactly. And with that win, ADRZ did punch their ticket to the playoffs.
They did.
And
again
achieved another division win.
Yeah. 3 in a row.
And as you can see now, they actually have a pretty good history against the Dream Team, which is even better improved now. They moved to 8-3 against the Dream Team all time.
Unbelievable.
Oops, excuse me. Where were we? Yeah, we
there.
We looked at that game. We just looked at that one.
There we are here. Yes.
Yeah, that was right, wasn't it? Yeah. There we go. So now we're going to look at Pakistan against Southampton Knowles. Now entering this game, again, Southampton Knowles, another Tank Bowl candidate. They were pretty much solidly in the Tank Bowl. If they won and got some points and another team lost, they could have potentially climbed out of it. Meanwhile, Pakistan on the other side of the ball, entering this game with the lead in the division, tied in record, but had 20 points over Gridiron Gang. So pretty much needed a win to kind of secure it. They also needed to get some points to boot. And did that? They did, because they got 111 points. And they won the game against 71, and they punched their ticket to the playoffs too. Tell me about the game.
They did, and absolutely, and say it could have been more playing. Keep the faith with Dak, and against the Giants, it could have been an awful lot more than that. But we look at the positives of who played. So it's the only time in history where you're going to say that Case Keenum's a better QB than Tom Brady. 23 points to 11.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, Brady really hasn't been in that greater form over the last couple of weeks.
No, I didn't have Gronk this week.
No.
They always struggle in Miami, so there's reasons for it. And as you say, though, there was another week where he didn't even throw a touchdown. I can't remember the game, but yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And so in this, you can't say it's Brady or bust, I'm afraid, because say even if Brady had boomed, the rest of the team bust. So we look at Theoretic, who, to be fair, is a breakout candidate.
In the break of a mirror, in the absence of a mirror, excuse me, yeah, he's been really good.
Exactly. Jarvis Landry again. He's proved to be a useful acquisition this year. But other than that, I mean, say big zero for Jimmy Graham, who didn't really have much success against Jacksonville, but then very few receivers do. T.Y. Hilton's been a perennial disappointment all year, especially when it's snowing and you've got your man Nathan Peterman throwing to him, which that's it. Let's be honest, that doesn't help anybody. So Forte's an old guy. He's going. Marvin Jones is very much boom or bust. And say between kicker and D this week, who arguably you've got the best kicker and the best D in the league, scoring 10 points between them. That's not really where you want to be.
No.
On the other side, it's finally coming together for Pakistan. As we said earlier on in the season, they do have an enviable receiving corps. And you see that again. Julio, Michael Thomas, Engram. At last, Michael Thomas is actually showing some late season form in 117 yards and a touchdown. That's what you expect from where he's picked up in the draft earlier in the year. Marshawn Lynch will have worse games, but say he's been relied on in the absence of any sort of receivers in Oakland. Say Keenum's had a good game. But this is the guy I'm most impressed about. Alex Collins coming out of nowhere, brilliant pickup earlier in the year, has won him many a game, and say this is probably his best performance so far. So against an enviable, I'll say that word again because it is enviable. Steelers D in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Scoring 22 points, 120 yards and a touchdown. He's burned this lot. So I think that Pakistan has come good for them. I think if they can get their receivers in and clicked and get some good matchups, then they're going to be doing well in the playoffs. And they have to if they play an ADRZ, who we've just seen also have a very, very strong team.
Yeah.
As for the Narwhals, we said it over the season, they're pretty boom and bust. They've been very, very, I wouldn't say fortunate to get to where they've been, but they've done very, very well to get to the position they were.
Yeah.
So good for Pakistan. They needed that win. I think it's probably the right time for Pat to make it to the playoffs as well, because he should have done last year.
Well, he did make it last year. He won one and done.
To go further in the playoffs this year.
Second division win in a row. So
that shows you how much I didn't pay any attention last year.
Yeah, and Pakistan moved to 2-1 with their record against the Brady Bunch now. Southampton Knowles, excuse me. So next one then, Ixan against Bedednator. So we've got 3 of the playoff teams confirmed at this point going through here. Ixan entering this one, they were second in the division on points alone. So with a win, it would have been pretty certain they'd have made the playoffs. The Pakistan, basically, Gridiron Gang would have had to outscore Ixan by 71 points in the event of both teams losing or winning for them to not make the playoffs. So really, Ixan just kind of needed a win to put up some points.
Yeah. And
it was pretty much signed, sealed, delivered. On the other side of the ball, Bedednators, again, they've been knocked out of the playoffs at this point, so they're adjusting for ball position. But Ixan, they had a worst week possible just when they could not afford it.
No.
Because not only did they lose the game, they only got 82 points. Ixan only posted 49 points as well, which was crippling at this stage. And as we said, I don't even think I mentioned the 71 point scenario in last week's podcast because I was like, that ain't happening. No way at this point. But it really did come into play, which we'll see in a bit what happened. And we'll see if Ixan did get away with one or not. But they lost this one. Tell me about it.
They were very close to being touchdownless, which is very, very strange at this point of the season for a team that's been so good over the last five or 6 weeks. We've seen over the last couple of years that this team does have, towards the end of the season, a strong winning run. Last year, this very same point, they scored a massive total. This year, they're completely different. And there's really no reason to suggest why. I mean, they say even the bench is completely bereft of points.
Yeah, it's just a perfect storm of...
Absolutely. So, a case of some bad matchup, don't get me wrong. You've got Cousins against the Chargers, you've got...
Murray against Carolina, Watkins against Philly isn't the best, Anderson against Denver. And the list goes on. Even Bolt have turned up. Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, they've got their act together, which is great. So yes, to score less than 50 points on the last game of the regular season isn't really where you want to be.
No.
We all of our down weeks, but it's just what costs you, and ultimately this one loss has cost them. It's not a vintage performance from the Badetonators, and it hasn't been all year. This really isn't a vintage team for them, as I say.
Not now. I mean, it's easy to forget that this team early on was great, and as you can see, they have got points on the bench, and a lot went the other way. But yeah,
that's right. And I look here, and they probably look at P. Ryan. Would you play Kareem Hunt against Oakland? You probably would. Would you play Carlos Hyde against Houston? Possibly. There are some points on the bench which could have made it a little bit better as a buffer. But ultimately, they've won. And say they've relied on the Chargers heavily in this game to make it work. It's not there's like I say, the Potatoes performance makes me feel very vanilla. It doesn't. Absolutely no opinion either way. But Ixan, I mean, firstly you've got to feel sorry for him, but secondly, you won the league last year, so let's have some time.
And so we see the result of the Gridiron game. There's still a chance they got it. So
that's it.
Let's take a look.
Spoiler.
Let's take a look. But before we go on, Badetonators now level the score with Ixan, and they're now 5-5. So we'll take a look at that last game. So entering this one, I don't think we picked a marquee matchup. This was certainly up there if we would have done last week.
Absolutely.
Gridiron Gang against Tanking with Tankface, a classic game of the LOC, heated rivalry. Entering this one, Tanking with Tankface have not had the season they would have wanted. They have had a lot of points scored on them, but it's just not come together even in spite of that. Yeah. So they've been eliminated for a while, so they were jostling for position in the bowls. On the other side of the ball, Gridiron Gang still alive in the playoff race. They were the 5th place team entering this one, so just outside of contention. But as we just said, they could have overtaken Pedestan on points if they got the win as well. Didn't quite get enough, as we can see here. Pedestan got 111, so that avenue was out. ADRZ already secured their ticket with the win. That window was out, so the only one left was Ixan, where we found out now they lost, so all Gridiron Gang effectively had to do was win. But even in the event of a loss, potentially, they would have just needed to outscore them by about 71 points. And as it would happen, Tank the Tankface put up a hell of a fight, having a great week to finish the season, 112, trying to play spoilers like they love to do. I've got to be honest. When I made the schedule and saw this, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Tanking the Tankface last week of the season?
Surely not.
It was almost built for that to happen. But my team showed up, Gridiron Gang, with the best week of their season, not just recently, of the season. 120.54 points to 111. And not only did I get the win, punching the playoff spot, but bizarrely...
It was exactly 71 points.
It was exactly 71, so I'm now tied on points with Ben for the entire length of the season.
Yes.
It's pretty incredible.
Rudimentary maths. I was just working that out in my head there.
You'll notice there's a slight decimal shift. That decimal shift does equate to the tying it up completely.
Yeah.
And it's quite stunning, really. We've had one tie in the league, and that was before fractional points.
Yeah.
Now we've got fractional points, and both teams ended up on the same amount of points. Are you kidding me? But that didn't come into play as it would happen, because Gridiron Gang did win, and they take the wild card
That's quite amazing.
In a career tying best season, 9-5. Tell me about this.
Wow, and it really picked out. If we talk about Ixan in the sense that they lost the game which mattered, Gridiron Gang won the game that they needed to win.
Which they haven't done for the last few years.
This is true. So let's not take it away from Tanky McTankface.
Oh god, I thought I was losing this for so many points.
They put up a valiant fight. I think had Wentz not gone for his crazy run and into the end zone, then he probably would have scored another touchdown at some point in the game.
Yeah, probably.
And this would have been a completely different, different sort of win for what we're talking about, because it would have been the closest playoff finish.
I don't even know what the wild card would have been.
That's right.
The points have been. I have no idea what it would have done.
No idea. It's crazy, but we don't need to talk about that scenario because here's how the game was won. Now, that's it. Let's be honest. Gridiron Gang were behind. They were behind big time going into Sunday night.
Sunday night.
Yes, the latest game Sunday night. Early
I think the point was 92 to 75 at that point. It's a 17-point deficit. I had Bell in the Sunday night game, and Tanky McTankface had Chris Boswell. And then in the Monday night games, I had Brownie Cooks and Rex Burkhead, and Phil had the Patriots D.
So that's really not where the game was won. That's it. The game was really won on Sunday night, late Sunday night. Le'Veon Bell with 30 points. I mean, say absolutely mega score. Pick it out. That first round draft pick it out where it really matters.
Yeah.
That's it. In what was a shootout. In
3 touchdowns
against Baltimore. Other than that, Harrison Butker again has been a very decent pickup for this team. So he's a solid kicker throughout the course of the year. Burkhead, since he's come back from injury, has been a bit of a touchdown machine. So you can't ever rule him out, especially with the kind of chances that New England create for themselves. So handy performance from Des against the Giants, but you'd expect that. As we say, Lev Bell. But this is it. This was the spot start of the week, in my opinion. It's it. Giovanni Bernard, but Mixon wasn't playing. Bernard comes in. Yeah, it's a bad loss, but say look at that stat line: 62 rush, 68 receiving yards, really good. 13 points, exactly what you need to push over the line. On the other side, let's say without Wentz,
I was so infuriated. Actually, he had 3 touchdowns basically in the first 20 minutes of the game. I was like, "Oh, this ain't how I'm going out. Come on, you got to be kidding me!"
That's it. But here's the difference, isn't it? I mean, say look at Ingram and Coleman really haven't.
Yeah, and that was the Thursday night game, so it was a bad start for Tanky McTankface.
Absolutely, you're always it's an uphill battle. Yeah, Jeffrey's done well. Rudolph's done well in a position that's entirely difficult to predict this year. Devontae Adams.
He's been the Packers' best receiver this season.
Absolutely. Against Cleveland, it's a good matchup, and say his touchdown at the end was something to behold, really, let's be honest. Is it? Going through 3 defenders and scoring in the corner. He's down the tunnel, off he goes.
Yeah.
See you later. And Chris Boswell say in that blowout win, plenty of field goals, plenty of opportunities for him. So, although it is, again, as we said earlier on in the show, it's the same sort of performance that we saw from. Let me just remind myself who scored big and then didn't win. Dream Team, that's who it was. Same sort of performance as we saw from the Dream Team as Tanky McTankface, just playing the wrong opposition on the wrong week.
Yeah.
There's a 9-point difference, but let's be honest. The only way they could have won this was to play D.D. Westbrook against Seattle over Mike Evans in Detroit, and that's not really going to happen.
No, never going to happen. No.
Yeah.
So
clutch win.
As we say, clutch win. Gridiron Gang return to the playoffs. First time since 2011, as does Forge Flyers. And we'll cover off more of that stuff in a second. But to wrap up this one, Gridiron Gang now moves to 6-7 all time against Simon Tankface. So that's a pretty good rivalry right there.
Absolutely.
If there ever was one. So I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this is on the site. If you go and look at the week recaps, you can do that. Just go into the last week's game, or when you're on the current week game center on the desktop, there's an option to do it. There's a tab. But just some fun stats that it tells you what's going on around the league. I thought I'd just bring it in here to do a quick pit stop between looking at the next week's stuff. So things like this. So Gridiron Gang is now beating their projected score 4 weeks in a row, and these aren't just mine. Don't worry, they're just league-wide ones. So I don't pick these because Bare Necessities earned the win this week despite not starting a top 30 scoring wide receiver, which is quite surprising.
Okay. Yeah.
And they did get in the 90s, remember, as well. It wasn't a cheap win. ADRZ continues to find the pundits and has beaten their projected score 3 weeks in a row. Teams have won 53% of the time this season when they throw no interceptions in a week.
Would make sense.
So it's an interesting one. They've also won 56% of the time, starting the league's top scoring quarterback of the week. So it's a 5-4 record overall, which is quite surprising when you consider, we're a 6-point touchdown league. If your quarterback has a good day, and this isn't talking the QB one for the week, it's saying out of all the QBs started, the best QB that was started. Okay. But still, that's going to be a good score in a week. Only to be 5-4, it's quite odd. Ben Necessities is on a 4-game winning streak, so turns out they didn't need Aaron Rodgers after all.
No, it's it.
But Big Ben has pretty much stepped in recently. Huddersfield on a 3-game win streak, entering the playoffs, and Southampton now has decreased their score over the past 3 weeks, so not all good news in these, I'm afraid, but just some interesting things. It's fun to chuck in.
Yeah.
So we will take a look at the final standings of the regular season now. So starting with the Southampton division, 11-3 Forge Flyers. I think they were pretty much winning it from day one. Stayed there for the rest of the way. A league best record. They take home the league title for the second time in their history.
It's an achievement.
It is an achievement. Yeah, it's arguably that it's there's more skill and it's harder to win the league as opposed to the Corona Bowl because it's over the body of 14 weeks as opposed to 2 or game by game basis. So great achievement there. But then they finish up 6-8, nearly getting back to a winning record, which probably they did deserve. They scored quite well this season, but ultimately they'll be happy with how they finished it, I think. Southampton Knowles and the Dream Team at 4-10. They are our tank goal teams, and we'll take a look at that more in a bit. Portsmouth division, Pakistan wins the division, as I said, for the second year in a row, 9-5. It was a good season for them. The Grenadier Gang as well, returning to the playoffs again, like Forge Flyers, first time since 2011. They pick up the wild card spot. Ben Necessities 8-6. They were just a hair behind. Really, in some ways they're quite. It's quite surprising they're there. And you can check I haven't included it on here, but the award nominations are out. You can check out that article. And rightly so, Ben Necessities is awarded the Comeback Award for overcoming that loss of Aaron Rodgers. Cash Gold 6-8. They started off with a lot of wins, but really we kind of spotted they were pretenders early on. I've got another stat in this deck in a bit, which we'll see. They're not actually as bad as we think they were, but in terms of the output they did have, 6-8, not great. But hey, a lot of promise still. Winchester Division, ARZ, they finished up 9-5, took the division with a league high 1,470 points.
Big total.
So that's I think huge. They were the only team to be in the 1400s this season.
100 points more than me, which I'm second.
Yeah, so congratulations there. Exxon, 88-6, as we said. I just missed out on the playoffs, as we also said. Grenadier Gang literally tied down to the decimal, 1,339.84 points they got in the end.
Wow.
So that's quite stunning. Tank Mates, 5-9. Again, they've been one of the highest scoring teams. I think they were even the second highest, but they've conceded the most by a long way. So unfortunate there. Not all of those games were close that they got blown out in, but it does play a role, of course. And then Tom Starr's also 5-9. Rounding out the bottom. So let's just, what else have I put in this deck? Yeah, I just chuck in the breakdown every week, so it kind of sees through the standings to what team playing everyone would have done, and you can see the playoff teams are pretty much there or thereabouts. This is what you expect. Forge Flyers at the top, ADOZ. Interestingly, the Detonators third, but if you dig into the last few weeks, they've only had 2 winning weeks in that span.
Yeah.
In fact, no, excuse me, they've only had 1 winning week over that span. So clearly, a lot of these wins came early in the season. They haven't been that good in the second half of the season. Pakistan, another playoff team here, tanking with Tankface again. As we said, they've scored a lot. That's definitely played a role because they've had some high scores, and that's pushed them up here. Grenadier Gang 6, 7. Obviously, both playoff teams or playoff hopefuls, and then the teams you'd expect down here. Moving on, I thought I'd chuck in the coach score as well. So this is points you leave on your bench. Now, some of this is going to be artificial because you'll have guys that obviously you were never going to play or whatever that have just outscored a guy that might have had a bad week.
Yeah.
But, if there's a lot of the points, or if there are situations, obviously, where you might start somewhere different, it is quite telling. And you look at the top, Southampton was right at the top, 98, so that tells you they've been a pretty bad team, considering they were last place, didn't have a lot of options on the bench either, so and we know that's true because they haven't done a lot of waiver moves. But then, you get the playoff teams here, or the playoff-ish teams. Ben Necessities, starting at 2 to ADLZ at 7. All the playoff teams are in there and the playoff hopefuls, so it tells you something that these teams did right this season.
Yeah.
And then you look down here, the teams that did worse and did leave a lot of points on the bench. And Tanky and Tankface, 230 points there, could have done better. But Ednate is 250 points, could have done better.
We see that. If I can interject it just a little bit, we at the beginning of the season we said that Bedetnes, the only way the Bedetnes could lose the season was by beating themselves, and I think this proves that the theory year on year is the same. So last year lost out by a lot of points, this year same sort of thing. Now again, yeah, as you say, it could be artificial, but I think earlier on in the season some wins could have been a little bit easier with a few more points on the board.
Yeah. And finally, just to round that out, exactly what you've been saying and what I was alluding to earlier with Cash for Gold.
Yeah.
You know, we say they didn't go over 100 points a lot, or even 90 points, I believe, 4 times in the entire season, I think. And that leads you to believe, oh, they're just not a great team. How are they getting the wins? Well, I would kind of disagree, because they left 320 points on their bench, which is 70 more than the next closest. Yeah. And if we ignore Southampton and Arnold's, 170 more than the second place one, Bare Necessities. They could have scored, they could have got those points, they just left them on the bench. So it's really a case of what could have been, unfortunately, for them.
Indeed.
And then finally looking at the true rankings, which is kind of, it's basically it awards points based on your record, points forward, the breakdown, your team versus team stuff, and then what we just covered, the coach score. You add them all together, it scores 1 to 12 based on where your position is, and you see the 4 playoff teams right at the top. So I think what I'm trying to say is the teams that got there kind of deserve the stats. Ixan right below, and again, Bare Necessity is following right up, so you can see that kind of holds true. There were no teams really that don't deserve to be in or around the playoffs this year.
No.
So I told you I was getting analytical this week. This is what I do for my career, people.
It's great.
So now this is the playoff bracket, so we know the 4 teams. How does it shake out? Who's playing who? We'll of course cover this in depth in a second. We've got the number 1 Forge Flyer seed playing the number 4 seed Wildcard Team Gridiron Gang with the other game ADLZ second seed taking on Pakistan the 3rd seed. So I thought as well, just we can take a pit stop on it as well, just looking at the 4 playoff teams a bit more in detail and mainly focusing on the lead up or how they got to the playoffs. So you can see, we know the story of Gridiron Gang. They had a lot of injuries at the start, 2 bad weeks to start off the season, but then after that they went 9-3, so really a great run. And looking at the last pretty much month, 2 months especially, they lost 2 games, but from weeks 9 to week 14, they never dipped below 90 points. And indeed, the last 4 weeks of the season, over 100 points each of the weeks.
It's been very consistent in the last, especially the last 4. Because it's difficult to beat 98, 106, 104. So Bare Necessity did beat him in what was a pretty tight win that week. 107 and especially 120. So that's quite good. And so over the course of the year, still you've gone over 100 points with that last 4 times there, 5, 6 out of 14. That's a nice ratio. So yeah, I think that's real positive, and especially a bit of momentum towards the end of the season. That's exactly what you want.
Absolutely. Now looking at your team again, it's a bit better version of that story. But you had the good start, which I didn't. Starting the season, you really came firing out the gates. Pretty much posting 100 points the first 4 weeks. Had a bit of a blip week, but then straight back on the horse with another 200-point games. A bit too of a low-scoring wins here at the 80 points, but hey, we all get them sometimes. And it was a bit of a mid-season lull because you did get a lot of one of those. But then again, over the final 4 games, back on the horse, over 100 points in 3 of those 4 games, except for one strange 58-point week. But ultimately, a really good season, a pretty strong finish. Obviously, the first half does look a lot stronger than the second because of this part here, but obviously buys played a part there, and we know there was 1 week where you had 6 buy players. But a good season, definitely. But a good season nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Now looking at Pakistan, so they were kind of the opposite of my team in the sense. So they had a really good start. They started 4-1, but then they had again a bit of a mid-season lull. I say a mid-season lull. 2 of those 3 games that they lost there, they went over 100 points, and another they posted 62. So that dropped them back a bit. But then again, a really strong finish to the season, going 5-1 over the last 6 weeks of the season. And they went over 100 points in all of their wins. Again, had 1 blip week. they're kind of prone to their blip weeks every now and then, so that's something to look out for in the playoffs for sure. But a pretty good team, I think it's fair to say.
100%. 100%. It has been for the last 2 years.
Yeah. And then finally we've got ADRZ, which started slow out the gate, much like my team did with an auto-drafted team. You kind of expect that. Yeah. And really that kind of continued for the first half of the season. Up until, and including week 6, they'd only topped 100 points once. They were 3-3 and going into that. But then from week 7 onwards, completely different story really. They went over 100 points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Some of them really convincing weeks as well.
I think it's the only team to go over 120 points 3 times in the season.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously very close to the 118 up here. Yeah. So, I missed the 155 points. 4 times in the season. So, yeah, this team has absolute box office potential. And
it's steaming into the playoffs.
It's 5 times. That's where it was 120. That wasn't even a loss. So
yeah, 112.
That's crazy. And so to have that 5 or 6 times in a year. To go over 100 and 110 points, man, watch out for ADRZ. So, they're defending champion for a reason. They know what they're doing. That's it. And as we can see over the last 5 weeks, say 4 of those 5 weeks, over 110 points. So just watch out and be scared of Pat Stan.
It's going to have a match up with fireworks, that's for sure. And now again, just stopping here, and we've shown a light in the playoff teams. We'll talk about the forfeit playoffs a bit now. So, as I said, make sure you talk to your opponent, get the matchups in. But we have the bowls here. We will take a quick look at them, but obviously the 2 weeks matchup, so we're not going to dive too deep because we won't know a winner after week 1.
No.
First, we got the Tank Bowl, Southampton Knowles against the Dream Team, so that should be a good one. Soup Bowl, Tom's Tyrants against Tanky McTankface. Fish Bowl, Cash Goal against the Detonators, and then the Fruit Bowl, Ixan against Benesis. These are some good games in there to look forward to. Now, looking at the milestones, and as I said, we've tried to make this a bit more production value high and a bit more streamlined. So, looking at the milestones, I've circled them out so they're a lot easier to spot. Gridiron Gang levels up their record. They are now at 500 for... I think they hit it at some point last season, but it's been a struggle getting back to that after a couple of bad years. And you, Chris, Coach Leach, you've just notched your 60th career and regular season win, so congratulations to you. Ixan, they've notched their 50th regular season loss.
Oh, yeah.
The Dream Team in the regular season are now 500 overall, 49 and 49. Ross Nunn, coach of Southampton Knowles, has just notched his 40th regular season loss. And finally, Ollie Gardner, he's had a good start to his career, but he's at 500 now with another loss, 14 and 14 overall.
Might as well have been it.
Might as well not have been it, yeah.
No, you are more than welcome.
Yes. Of course, I maintain all of these, and you can see them on the Facebook group page. There's a pinned post that has a link to all of these in a Google Drive. I've updated the accolades now, so this is where we keep track of who wins all the awards, playoff appearances, division wins, and as such. So I've updated this for Coach Wells. 4th playoff appearance now he's achieved, 3 years in a row, so that's pretty impressive.
Massive.
He's also secured another division championship, again the 3 years in a row, and he's also got his first high scoring team, so congrats for that. Great achievement.
Wow.
And then looking at the other stuff, so I've notched my 4th playoff berth, first since 2011, and that was it for me there. Chris Leach, you kind of doubled yours in a way, because you've done exactly what you did in 2011, because you not only got another playoff appearance, you not only got a regular season championship, you also got the division championship. The only thing you missed out on was the highest scoring team. So,
that's it. That was in 2011 as well.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Yeah, it was. No deserters here. 100 points more. I mean, that's good over 14 weeks.
Yeah. And then finally, Pat, he secures his 2nd playoff appearance 2 years in a row, and he's also got another division win to go with it. So now we will take a look at the games next week. As I said, we'll have a kind of a preview of each team for the forfeit playoffs, but not an in-depth look at the matchups, so to speak. And then we'll get to the real playoffs. So looking at this one, the Dream Team, we all know the score with how their season's gone so far. What do you think is going to happen for them in the forfeit playoffs?
That's it. I think the Dream Team have been a really interesting proposition, because they were, if you had talked to me about the same team last week, I said they were down and out after 2 terrible weeks. But they had come back with a big scorer last week, and I don't think that they're going to be out of the game. But at the same time, they really do need their key players to perform on the day. You know, and I think that this week they do have 3+ matchups. I think if they play CJ Anderson, which they probably should do against rather than Duke Johnson, you know, to have that foundation of 2 running backs and a QB who is an elite QB, all in the green, all with a good matchup, that does bode well. You know, I think Thielen all year has been one of their key players, but he's got a bad matchup this week. I'd say for the rest of the team, Doxson's a bit of a dart. Sterling Shepard can perform depending on what he feels like doing. So against Philly,
speaking for 2 weeks though, you think they're good for the 2 weeks?
Give
That's
it
the
2
thing
weeks.
we've got to bear in mind. It's kind
That's
of a
right.
change up for us.
I absolutely right. I don't know about 2 weeks overall. I don't think they've been able to put a consistent 2 weeks together. But at the same time, if you can win it in week 1, and have an unassailable points lead, then you're going well.
Absolutely. And their opponent, Southampton Narwhals as well, who's, to be fair, they've been pretty consistent in the season. Not spectacular, really.
No.
What do you make for their 2 weeks?
I think it's going to be challenging for them to put up any good numbers, and I must admit, there's a lot of players that are on the down. I think even Brady at this point in the season is trending down. Matt Forte hasn't been fit for a couple of weeks. Riddick, he could be on the up with Abdullah being scratched, but you know, at the same time, you got especially this week, you got Hilton versus Denver, hasn't done a lot all year. Landry against Buffalo, hard place to go, and Jones against Chicago, who's done Chicago kind of underrated side in terms of the D.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Graham also playing Los Angeles as well. Again, tough. So yeah, I think that here, especially in game 1, limited matchups, not as good as the dream team, and haven't been really as good a team all year.
Sure. Yeah. Looking at the next one now, so Tom's Tyrants. What do you make of their 2 weeks coming up?
Well, I think that here, if you just look at it in isolation, this is the week where Tom's Tyrants can really show what their team's all about. The firepower can come out this week. We see here, say their 3 key receivers, which I think are probably their 3 best players on the team, have plus matchups. If Cooper plays, then he doesn't play. Then who's he going to put in? Well, I see Kerwin Williams. He's looked good over the last couple of weeks. Paul Richardson's been there. He's got a quality QB. Cooper Kupp had a great game last week. So 3 very, very decent options there. Running back's always a problem with this team, and has been throughout the course of the year. But I think that here the 2 key players that we're going to look out for here are Brown and Allen, and with the potential to put up some really big numbers. Alex Smith, to be fair, on his day, he's shown against tough opposition that he really can perform.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. And their opponent is Tanky McTankface, obviously just coming off that big week, have had a lot of pent-up frustration this season, conceding a lot. What do you think is going to happen for them over the 2 weeks?
Well, Phil the Gambler, he's picked up some interesting players, as we sort of see it on the show. He's picked up Garoppolo and Flacco. You know, that's a real difference in terms of QB.
Who's in the lineup?
Oh yes, that's it. A real difference in QB between them 2 and Wentz. As they said there, D.D. Westbrook, he's been hyping this guy up for weeks and weeks and weeks. He's actually going to play him this week against quite a weak Houston secondary, which is great. I think Jeffrey against the Giants is fantastic this week.
Without Wentz, though, we'll have to see what Foles has got left.
Nick Foles has been there and done it. I said a lot of these guys you see coming in this year as reserve QBs, they haven't been there and done it. But Foles, he's had his moments.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about. It was probably 2 or 3 seasons ago that we were talking about Foles a bit. I know I started him 1 year, but I came last in the league. So maybe that wasn't so clever. But at the same time, we've seen flashes of brilliance from Tanky McTankface, albeit that it has been led by their QB. So it'd be interesting to see if Garoppolo or Flacco can really fill that void.
Yeah, I'm just going to say I want Tanky McTankface to win for Garoppolo.
That's it. Jimmy
He's
G
my man.
deserves his moment.
My man. Next one, now we have the standard format because unfortunately the site doesn't show the other ones, but we can look at the other games in the standard format. So this is the Fishbowl. Cash for Gold, the Ollies, the Battle of the Ollies against the Detonators. So what do you make for their 2 weeks?
Well, I think that here you've got 2 teams that have really been consistently inconsistent all year. The Detonators, as we said earlier on, didn't have a lot to write home about, didn't have a lot to shout about.
Bottom 2 teams in coach score as well, as we saw.
That's
I think between the 2, they've left 600 points on the bench.
So basically, whose bench can outscore each other? That's it. Maybe that's more interesting than the actual game itself. As I say, they've what I like here is that they've actually got the two best tight ends in the league, I think, in Hunter Henry and Zach Ertz.
Two of the best, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see those guys match up. But and also, again, it's a 3 running back set for both teams as well. So can P. Ryan, Hunt, and Gordon be better than Henry, Kamara, and Ajayi? Well, that is what's to be seen. I think that Cash Goals receivers are better on paper. Josh Gordon's come back in and got lots of volume, and Stephon Diggs hasn't really got the same sort of player as he did last year. Nowhere near matching the potential that we saw earlier in the season. So, who do I think is going to be? Who I think is going to win? It's very difficult to say. Cashman would have snuck by all year. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they did well in this matchup. But I think that the Buccaneers have got the better players.
Sure. Okay. Next one then. This is the Fruit Bowl. So this is basically the two teams that just missed out on the playoffs. Exciting against bare necessities. We've got two former champions in this one.
Yeah.
One last year and one the first one quite a while ago now. But hey, what do you make for that 2 weeks?
Well, Ixan have absolutely flatlined over the last couple of weeks. There's not a lot to shout about on the bench, so they're going to have to go with what's in the team. Now, do I like here what I see? Well, I don't like Watkins against Seattle. I don't like Miller against Jacksonville. But at the same time, I do like Kelsey against the Chargers, and I do like Robbie Anderson against New Orleans. I don't like his quarterback. on the other side, is it really time to say Big Ben or bust? I'm not really too sure. I think Big
Ben or bounce.
Yes.
Big Ben or bounce.
Big Ben or bounce. Well, Big Ben's been the glue that's really held their season together. And as much as Jamal Williams has been good over the last couple of weeks, I don't think you can really rely on the same sort of volume. But you can with Big Ben. He is that sort of QB who's going to be throwing multiple touchdowns to multiple receivers. Unfortunately, like earlier on the season, the game really isn't there because there aren't that many other Green Bay. Green Bay players at the beginning of the season, but now there's not many Pittsburgh players playing it. So I think Tyreek Hill has the potential to always break out and do something massive. I think Devontae Freeman has the very similar traits, provided that Atlanta can play through him. Crabtree's got a touchdown, especially now he's pretty much the de facto #1 receiver in Oakland, playing in weak Dallas. D. So there, I think over the 2 weeks it's going to be very, very different breaks to apart. Ixan were trending very much up over the last 4 or 5 weeks, but really came crashing down to earth. I know that's put me off a little bit, but I think I'm still going to go with them because they've shown what they can do. But don't rule out better.
No, this should be a good.
It's a very, very good matchup.
And now we get to the games that actually still matter in terms of the race for the Corona Bowl. And we'll look at this one first. We'll do the 2v3 seed first. So Pakistan take on ADRZ, two division winners, both 9-5. Got the highest scoring team, who, as we've seen, are very hot entering this one. And Pakistan aren't much of a slouch either.
No.
We've got some stats here. So all-time ADRZ is 3-1 against Pakistan. So they haven't played a lot, but he's got the edge in terms of the matchup. Last time these two played, ADLZ lost early in the season, 102-93. So that was a close one then as well. And this probably will have even more fireworks than that one. So looking right now, Pakistan doesn't have a defense in. They might have one on the bottom here. In fact, I think
Falcons,
they do. But the projection is probably going to be somewhere in the realm of 95 to 100 points. ADLZ's projection is just a hair over 100. Tell me about the game.
Okay, so let's run down what I think could be the Achilles heel of ADRZ. So we were talking about key matchups earlier on and how these really affect you at this time of the year. Well, I see Greed in Minnesota. I see Hopkins in Jacksonville. I see Gronk in Pittsburgh, and he's not 100%. I see Smith-Schuster coming back off a suspension. Yes, in New England. Now, these four very key receivers, plus the fact you've got Corral playing against Bolton, that's a hard game as well. They're matchups you don't really want in this sort of game because we've seen Jacksonville absolutely shut receivers down, especially shut quarterback down as well. When you've got Tom Savage, in fact you haven't got Tom Savage this week, have you?
It's TJ Yates.
Yeah, exactly. So if you thought Tom Savage was bad, TJ Yates possibly could be even worse. And this is your third string QB who really didn't expect to be playing at the beginning of the year. Let's be honest.
I don't think he was even on the team.
No, that's it. So, that's going to be tough. And I know Hopkins is a quality receiver. He's going to get some massive volume from the guy, but it's a hard place to go this time of the year. say Green is another worldly talent, but say Minnesota is a challenging place to go to, and they've got a good D. The other team that I would like to talk about just a little bit here is the Rams. Now we're going to see again two big players for this team, and Zuerlein has been a big player for this team. Very much gone under the radar a little bit, but he's the #1 kicker in fantasy. He's playing in Seattle in December. Now, if there's one place to go that you don't really want to be a kicker, it's Seattle in December, because that's windy. The conditions are tough. And are you more likely to go for a field goal from 50 yards, or are you going to go for it on 4th? That's the sort of thing that's going to be interesting to see at the weekend. But again,
or even punt.
Or even punt, indeed. That's it. And Wilson in Los Angeles playing at home. This is the kind of matchup that he wants right now, because that has all the potential to go off, I think. And Russell Wilson at home, he knows the conditions well.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a master there, and he's been putting up big scores all year, especially against anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. So we go across the board a little bit. Case Keenum's been an interesting pickup all year. He's been kind of rolling the numbers in. That's what matters in this.
It's QB1.
Yeah.
For whatever that.
Exactly.
Yeah, make of that what you want.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the name is. They're putting up the numbers. Lynch against Dallas has the potential to be really good, as is Morris against Oakland, if you can get the sort of volume that you want to see. Jones against Tampa is really good as well. I like that. I like Thomas against the Jets in New Orleans, especially as they've probably been offense a lot. Engram's been a revelation at tight end in the second half of the season.
No more receiving after the Giants were
100%, and especially against Philly, provided that Philly can't shut Eli Manning down, and that should be fine. And Alex Collins against Cleveland is the matchup of this entire tie. Whereas, as we saw last week, he absolutely ruined a decent D. They played not a particularly good run D in Cleveland, and that has, the hallmarks of a bit of a beatdown, I'm afraid. So, we look here, and we see on one side of the board a team that scored a massive amount of points on a good day. They're terrible matchups against Pakistan, who've got very good matchups, score a consistent amount of points. Will that merge in the middle, make it a really tough tie? It's difficult to tell, but I think you still have to back ADRC.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pick Pakistan, because you're right. It's really tough to pick against a team that's just been putting up points like anything we've ever seen. They do it in their sleep almost. But you correctly pointed out the matchups there are gross, and not everyone in this lineup is a superstar.
No.
And when those guys particularly have bad matchups, those are the ones that fall away the quickest.
Yeah.
And it only takes one of your key players to not perform on the day as well, and that leaves you in not a bad week, but not the best week.
No.
And in the playoffs, especially this year, I think we're pretty certain. These are 4 very good teams. As you've also correctly pointed out, looking down, Pakistan's matchups are pretty good, and they've got their own talent as well. And I just think, just looking down ADRZ, some players really need to play, above the matchup.
Yeah. To
give them a chance of winning this one. And I just think the safer bet, despite the team on the right being the highest scorer in the league, is Pakistan right now. Because every team has an off week in the LEC. It doesn't matter how good you are. It happens to everyone.
Yeah.
And Pakistan, same story, but I think this week they just look like a bit safe bet. That is not by any means saying he's going to lose this, but I can see the avenue, like you were saying, that they will.
Yeah.
Or could. So I'm going Pakistan for this one.
Big time.
So that was that game, and now we've got the other game, Gridiron Gang versus Forge Flies, the podcast bowl.
Indeed.
We'll see in a second, but we started the season with this one. Shame we couldn't quite finish it, but it's not far off the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
The podcast bowl. First time these two have made the playoffs since 2011.
Massive.
And unfortunately, they're going to have to knock one or the other out.
Yes.
But it was a shame. Hey ho.
That shame.
Story of this one, as we know, Forge Flies has won the league, the regular season, the league title 11-3, and they've been very good all year. Gridiron Gang, they've overcome a lot to be where they are. And they've got some momentum too. They're still the wild card, as they always do in the playoffs. It's the only way they can make playoffs. Looking down the lineup, currently the projections are in Forge-Fly's favour, 102 to 94, but this guy up here, Matthew Stafford, will not be starting the weekend. Aaron Rodgers will be the start for Gridiron Gang.
Big breaking news there.
Breaking news. Gridiron Gang traditionally have the edge on Forge Flies, 9-5. But earlier in the season, Forge Flies did notch a win over Gridiron Gang in the midst of their slow start of the season, 105 to 79. So yeah, as I said, Rodgers will come to the starting lineup from the reserve spot. Tell me about the game.
Huge. This is a huge game. Huge game. Okay, so let's. I think we can dissect each other's here.
Yeah, so, you do me, I'll do you.
Okay.
That seems fair.
So let's start with the QB. I think Stafford's coming out. Rodgers is coming in. Rodgers, correct me if I'm wrong, he's playing New England, Carolina. That's it. So that's not the easiest game.
It's pretty good because they've been bad the last few weeks. Their past defense, they've given up loads of points to good quarterbacks this year.
Big physical O-line.
Also, Aaron Rodgers coming off injury traditionally plays very well.
That's it. Ooh.
4 touchdowns in one game, 2 touchdowns and over 350 yards in the
other. Can he do it again? Is the question. Okay, so then we got Burkhead and Bell. Now, so this is going to be it's just in the same game. This has the potential to be a real touchdown fest here. That's it. I think with the way Big Ben is at the moment, and Bell has been that kind of all-action dynamic back, whether it be running or rushing, running or receiving. It's been very, very good for him. Burkhead is a bit of a touchdown vulture. We'll see how we go with that. He has the potential to do nothing or do a lot, and I think that's the kind of player you want that can really swing a game. So Funchess against Green Bay. He's always flattered to deceive, Devin Funchess. Always flattered to deceive. He's a big unit. He's a massive guy. He should be one of those like Calvin Johnson style dominating receivers. Just hasn't really worked out for him. Yeah, but there's always a potential that the guy's going to break out.
Since they traded Kevin Benjamin, he's number 5 in receiver points.
Is he really? Well, there you go. That's it. But not prolific still. Not prolific. And Brandon Cooks is what Brandon Cooks is. But at the same time, he.
Thanks, Alexa.
Hey, that's it. I don't know what that was, right? But yeah, Brandon Cooks again. Say he's big or.
Bust, yeah.
Big or nothing. So yes, Jack Doyle's got a really good matchup against Denver. They're not very good against tight ends. Obviously not very good against receivers either. It's going to be good conditions there too. Again, good conditions to be quick for the kick out, and the Saints did even picked out because the QB is just simply not there. So yeah, I think all in, it is going to be a really, really interesting game because there are some players who can really, really go off.
Yeah.
And they're going to need to as well because they're playing against what is quite an explosive offense.
Yeah, and as is fair, I will now do Coach Leach's team. And they're in quarterback right now. I'm assuming they're going to stick with it, but they have Blake Bortles.
We do.
Playing against Houston at home, so Blake Bortles has been a really good option, especially the last couple of weeks. At quarterback, he's put up some really good points. But you never know with Blake Bortles. Chris will agree with me. It's a risk doing it. He hasn't.
100%.
The alternative is not great, so I can see absolutely why he's done it. But Blake Bortles always has the potential to fall flat on his face.
He does.
But even if he does, you've got guys like LeSean McCoy and Todd Gurley to back them up. So LeSean McCoy, he produced really well in that snow game last week. And he's got a good matchup at home against Miami. And Todd Gurley has proved he's matchup proof. Seattle's D-line is pretty formidable, but I think he can overcome it. Just the player he is and the way the Rams have been playing. So two locks right there. Then you go to the receivers, which aren't the strength of this team, but they usually bolster it. Larry Fitzgerald's playing in Washington, which is a tough matchup because even though he plays out the slot, he might draw Josh Norman, but they've got Brashad Breeland on the other side. I can't remember who their slot corner is. But it is a tough matchup, and I believe Arizona's not a great travelling team to the East Coast either.
Don't forget, he's still being thrown to by Blaine Gabbert as well.
Yeah, and being thrown to by Blaine Gabbert, we cannot overlook that. Marquise Goodwin, he's been good, especially since Jimmy Garoppolo stepped in. He's playing at home against Tennessee, which have been pretty good against receivers this year, especially number one receivers for teams. They've shut them down for the most part. Now, he is a bit of a unorthodox number one receiver. He's more of the speed variety than the all-rounder or a big body. So that's definitely one of the wild cards to watch in this game. O.J. Howard is an interesting added tight end. Cameron Brate traditionally has been the good tight end with Jameis Winston on the centre, but he did not play as many snaps as O.J. Howard did last week, and O.J. Howard had a pretty decent game, so he could do well in an AFC South matchup there, another wild card. Kenyon Drake as well, he's against Buffalo, who have pretty much been hemorrhaging rush yards on the ground. And he had a really good last week as well, as Chris already said. Away from home, there's a little of a wobble there, but ultimately, especially with Damian Williams out, he's going to get volume and should have a decent day. Ryan Succop has been a good kicker this year, but San Francisco, and with a kind of flailing Titans offense, you never know, but he should have his day. And then you've got the Jags D against Houston as well, which is a great matchup, especially now that TJ Yates is coming in. So they should feast as well. So two, I think, quite equal teams in terms of the matchups and the talent on the teams. Excuse me. So this should make for a really interesting game. We're not going to call each other's who's going to win this game, because A, we're both going to pick each other, but B, I think we could also agree that we could see either of us winning this game.
I agree.
So it should be a good one to watch, of course.
Totally.
And that brings us to the end of probably slightly longer podcast than usual, but hey, it's the playoffs. It's a good time to reflect and everything. So we hope you enjoyed this one. Next week, the rest of the awards will be out.
Yep.
The award nominees will be out by the time we do the podcast. So we'll know who's nominated for what, and we'll reveal those usually on the Corona Bowl day itself. We will take a look back at the first week of the forfeit playoffs, so we'll kind of have an idea of what teams are doing well in the forfeit playoffs, and of course we'll hopefully have the forfeits by that point as well, so we can let everyone know that, 'cause they're usually pretty funny.
But most importantly,
we'll know who's in the Corona Bowl and fighting for Corona Bowl 9 to take home the Stubbs Trophy, which is fortunately situated right next to me here now.
There you go.
So this is what we're all fighting for. It's a good few weeks. Obviously, if you're around on the weekend to come and watch the playoffs, please do. As I said, I'll create an event so you can kind of keep track. Anyway, if not, have a good rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And if you're going on holiday like I am from tomorrow, or not on holiday, but finishing work from tomorrow.
Are you really?
Yeah, I've got loads of holiday left now.
Wow, that's good for you.
So if you're taking time off as well, enjoy it. And
Absolutely.
we will be back here next week to review the game.
We certainly will.
And, one of us might not be, depending how.
One of us can be disappointed, but we're both going to be here.
See you later.
Take
Have
care.
a good one.
Cheers now.